Thank you very much for joining us.
All right, let's start big headlines in the national dailies. We start this morning with This Day newspaper. On the front page of This Day newspaper, you find a story there. See, as the chief of defense staff is saying, Boko Haram terrorists planned attacks from prison with warders' connivance. That's very startling revelation. You find these writers says 73 unmanned forests taken over by bandits. Calls for the of Simon Ekpa, rising costs of aviation fuel hindering war against terrorism, declares Chief of Army Staff. We're operating in difficult environments. Inspector General of Police laments. Afenifere urges Tinubu to issue executive order for creation of multi-level police. That's we find on the front page of the These Day newspaper. Of course, many more stories there. Let's check some more stories in that area. Tinubu is saying with stability, foreign investments in Nigeria now secure. Of course, that story has some writers. Says he was voted president because of his reform agenda. Pledges to build, sustain stronger Nigeria-Germany relations. $500 million renewable energy gas export pact signed. That's the details of the story you find from the front page. Of course, spilling to the 12th page. That's page 12 of the This Day newspaper. Falano, contrary to misconception, appeal court upheld Kano governor's election. That's on page 36. You'll find details there. Intrigues, unique rigmarole. Just check details in the This Day newspaper. You find the details there. Now, still talking about the courts. Obi is saying our courts are now courts of favor, procurement, not justice. That's an allegation from Obi. You find details on page 36 of I beg your pardon. That's on page 33. Page 33 of This Day newspaper. Now, yet another story here, of course, not from the court this time. The topmost part of the This Day newspaper has a story. NUPRC once again plans to frustrate gas flare commercialization program. Meets producers to resolve issues with awardees. So you find that on the front page, spilling to page 12 of the This Day newspaper. Of course, these and many more stories you find in This Day newspaper of today, the 22nd day of November 2023. Get details of those stories for your reading player.
And moving on to the leadership newspaper, where we have Appeal Court affirms Fintiri as Adamawa governor. Musawa unveils creative economic plans, assures 10% GDP contribution. We also have non-payment of service chiefs fees. Federal government revokes 1,633 mining licenses. You get details on the leadership newspaper. Service chiefs passing the buck
Okay,
over
service fees.
service. No, now I'm moving on to service chiefs. Yes, passing the buck over rising insecurity. We also have Wike orders review of land swap policy. Since he took over, Abuja has really been experiencing lots of changes, and I hope it continues.
I like the marriage of those two stories. The marriage of those two stories
The
brings to
fees
the
and the
fore
chiefs.
the issues. You know, I'm talking about the Wike story,
Okay.
and then the buck passing as reported in the leadership newspaper. Now, you're talking about Wike and the success story of the FCT administration, and that tells you that when you have a leader who is ready to take the bull by the horn, and who is also not ready to take no for an answer, from those working with him, you find the results, of course, coming to the front burner. What is more, the security of lives and property, nay, the security of the territorial integrity of the Nigerian state in the hands of a few people who have been trusted perhaps tested. I do not know. But for them to have been appointed as service chiefs, grilled, screened by the apex
National Assembly.
representation of the Nigerian people, the National Assembly, and that should tell you that, of course, they've been tested, and that should also, to a large extent, give us a sort of safe conclusion that these people are really capable. They're trained professional to the core to see to the security of lives and property of the Nigerian people. But when you see this kind of buck passing, I did read through the details of that story overnight, and that's talking about the briefing that the National Assembly is taking from sectoral briefing from different MDAs and then sectors of the Nigerian economy and polity. And that tells you that there's more to be done by service chiefs. It's not enough for you to give excuses. You were appointed to solve problems. If there were no problems, perhaps there wouldn't have been any reason to have service chiefs. Now you've been appointed service chiefs. You find the chief of army staff and the chief of defense staff and the chief of naval staff, all of them talking about one problem, challenge or the other. Of course, those are obvious problems. Those are obvious issues. Now, you're not appointed there to point to us that there are challenges. We all know there are challenges already. How are you working to solve these challenges and to solve this problem and surmount these challenges? Those are what Nigerians want to know. You're telling us that unmanned forests have been taken over by bandits. I wonder what you're doing if you cannot overrun bandits and then you're crying foul like a baby that unmanned forests are taken over by bandits where you're supposed to flush them out. I do not understand.
Even the National Security Advisor had to go back to Buhari's regime to talk about it, saying that, oh, they passed on a lot of insecurities. And I keep wondering, the fact you are there, what we should be hearing is the effort you are putting in place. So, because it appears funny these days that we don't even hear the positive news anymore. All we get to hear is, oh, this is what is happening, this was what we've been experiencing and all of that. Then the funny part is that those bandits release videos showing us how much they've neutralized the military, and even boasting, while the military sometimes will tell us that they neutralized 20 bandits. The bandits will return their own videos and say, look at them here, we even have the numbers. I don't know.
Why
Really
we cannot
sad.
say that the security agencies are not doing their job to get these bandits off? What I'm saying is, your efforts must be highlighted above your challenges. Now, Nigerians must have confidence in you that indeed the lives are safe in your hands. Not that you're telling us that bandit. By the way, who are the bandits? Maybe we should start from there. Who are the bandits? Now, what's the difference between the bandits and the terrorists? Because we've come to a stage where we now do profiling, where we do a lot of nomenclature, ascribing a lot of nomenclature to criminals. These elements are criminals. Sinidai. I do not know why we should be giving them different names. Today they are bandits, tomorrow they are Boko Haram terrorists, the other day they are another name entirely. Flush them out. I think President Tinubu should do more by just giving that order to flush them out.
Now, do you know the funny thing? They live amongst the people. The people know them. Now, why can't, is it that they are not reporting? Because they have even offices where you can actually go to make payments, because we hear states paying a particular amount of money to them. So if you can pay an amount of money to them, you know where they are. Now, why is it difficult?
Well, I think in the coming days, what's cheering is the fact that the National Assembly is waking up to its responsibility. Waking to its responsibility in the sense that you are representative of the people. You must know where the shoe pinches the people and therefore be their voice in ventilating their concerns appropriately. That, to me, is one thing that this multi-sectoral briefing that the National Assembly is engaging is all about. But it will not be a success if the outcome of those briefings are not made public to the people, and then how those recommendations are being implemented are also made available to the knowledge of the people. That, for me, is what is open governance is all about. I think we should move on.
All right, and we are still on the leadership newspaper, where we are open for alliance with PDP, Labour Party, and APC. That's coming from NNP. You can get details of that story on page 7 of the leadership newspaper. Federal government targets $10 billion local sheep charter markets. I think this is all we can take on the leadership newspaper. If you want the details, just get a copy this morning.
Right, let's see some stories that we perhaps haven't taken in the previous dailies. Let's move on and see what news stories we have in the Daily Sun newspaper of this morning. And you find it's still talking about security. Ohaneze, Afenifere Middle Belt Forum, press for state police. That's on the front page of the Daily Sun newspaper. Of course, it comes with these riders ask Tinubu to devolve police to state, local government levels to fix insecurity. It can't work unless constitution is amended. That's coming from ACF, the Iowa Consultative Forum. It's long overdue. That's coming from INC. Uriwa calls for state of emergency on kidnapping. Pages 5 and 6 of the Daily Sun newspaper house the stories rather, because a lot of stories there. Nigerian elections, product of manipulation, cancer destroying democracy. That's coming from an APC chieftain. Page 27 of the Daily Sun newspaper has that story. Troops kill 7 bandits, arrest 33, recover arms ammunition in Plateau, Kaduna raids. That's on page 5 of the Daily Sun newspaper. Nigeria targets $10 billion revenue through national shipping line annually. That's on page 24 of the Daily Sun newspaper. New twist in Plateau as Speaker, Deputy resign. Of course, I was talking about the politics playing out in Plateau State. Check page 8 of the Daily Sun newspaper. You'll find details there. And let's go to River State. Wike Fubara loyalists battle for control of Rivers Assembly. Page 6 of the Daily Sun newspaper has that story. FCT minister sets mid-2024 for completion of abandoned VP's residence. That's on page 8 of the Daily Sun newspaper. Insecurity. Judiciary not helping terror war. That's coming from the military. Because everybody is scratching his own sub. I think it's time for the judiciary there to fix wherever it is that there is loophole there. CDS accuses judges of endangering soldiers' lives. Well, I think that's huge. They must get to the root of the matter. Check details of this and many more in the Daily Sun newspaper of today.
Moving on to the Daily Trust. Confusion over contradictions in CTC of appeal court judgment sacking Kano governor. It is typographical error. Gauna's counsel, that's the APC chieftain. Only Supreme Court will interpret it, says Governor Yusuf's lawyer. Uproar in Senate over minority leadership seats. Osun government spends 2 billion naira on meals. Welfare runs office with 6 billion naira in 3 months. We also have reps indict NPA, NNPC, NBET, others over 14 trillion naira contingent liabilities. Kano stands still. Just look at the picture in the front of the Daily Trust there. We have the picture of the mammoth crowd welcoming the governor, Abba Kabir Yusuf, on arrival from Abuja. These are all we have on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. You can get a copy to get the details.
Well, what is intriguing is the fact that you find the way you put the story there.
The contingent liabilities, is that what
yes,
you're looking at?
Yes, that's reps indicted NPA and NPC and all of those. Now, what happens to the 14 trillion naira eventually? And what happens to those agencies too? You see, the problem with Nigeria is not absence of courageous men to point out wrongdoing, but the lack of courage, the lack of political will, the lack of the temerity and the willpower to apportion consequences for actions and inactions. And until we're able to fix that problem, we will be dancing in a circle of failure every time. Let's check if there are new things on the Nigerian Tribune. The Nigerian Tribune newspaper, why I approved Naira redesign. Well, Buhari is speaking there. Former President Muhammadu Buhari says Nigerians hold leadership hostage. All right. What other thing is new here? Let's check. PDP lost local government poll in Ogun because I rejected plots to bribe police, INEC. That's coming from Obasanjo. Okay. Lagos government didn't finance Sanwo-Olu's legal battle. That's coming from Commissioner. So who financed it? Check details on page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper this morning. Minority leadership seats, Senate in rowdy session as Labour Party kicks. Details of this and more in the Nigerian Tribune of this morning.
All right, let's take a look at Vanguard newspaper. We have Nigeria rig count drops 13% as oil output rises to 1.4 bpd. Nigeria, Germany signed $500 million renewable energy gas deals. Brutally frank, Nigeria doomed without restructuring federalism. That's coming from Clark, Adebanjo, Asiodu, Anya Akinyemi, Utomi, and others. We'll get details of that story on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper. All right, moving on to what we've not looked at this morning. Federal government revokes 1,633 solid minerals titles. All right, I think that's all we can. Okay, then let's look at sports where we have 2026 WCQ. Rwanda hands Super Eagles lifeline beats South Africa 2-0. All right, well, the lifeline.
Of course. It's a lifeline that they cannot afford to toy with.
So does it mean South Africa is not? They're not meeting South Africa any moment?
Well, time will tell.
Okay. Because the last time I checked, all their games was a 1-1 draw, so it was not looking good for them on the chart. So I was wondering, will they at any point, because when they call it a lifeline, so I wanted to look at what the lifeline is going to be for them. Does it mean they are going to rise above the point where they are?
That will depend on their performance.
Okay.
And maybe they will have good outing or terrible outing. Let's quickly check this before I allow you to go deeper into your sporting arena. On the front page of the Punch newspaper, I do not even know how to take the story. But then
okay.
you find it screaming at me and screaming at everybody on the front page. States spend 1.7 trillion naira on trips, meals, others. Borrow 988 billion naira. With these riders, states borrow 988.48 billion naira from banks, others in 9 months. Governors get over 87 billion naira for security votes. Ondo denies 7.3 billion naira diversion. Well, it's a huge story you'll find on the front page of the Punch newspaper of this morning. But what is instructive is the fact that 1.7 trillion naira on trips, going to where? On meals, eating what?
And welfare. So emphasis on welfare.
Welfare.
You know, yesterday, Sunday, social media was agog with reports from different states. Now, day before yesterday, the Abia State governor was already receiving his knocks, especially on the amount spent on meals. But he came out to say this was not the amount. Then we move over to Lagos State, where over 2 billion
No, he didn't say that was not the amount. Just saying that it's not for the governor, but for the entire state. It's having to do with conferences and all of that. And I keep asking whether or not the state is doing a scheme, for instance, school feeding. Maybe they're doing state feeding. Maybe it's the state government under the leadership of the governor is feeding every household.
And that's in 3 months.
On a daily basis.
3 months.
Maybe it's feeding every household on a daily basis. Because if that is not, and what exactly are they even eating? So I think it's important that stuffs like this don't get swept under the carpet. The problem we have is that what my friend, God rest his soul, we always call initial gragra. That once a discovery like this comes up, everyone is lashing at it, and then you find reports, analysis, commentaries, editorials, and so on and so forth. After a few weeks, and everything goes off, people rest. it doesn't make any sense. A nation that will grow, a state that will develop, must hold its leaders and followers accountable. If you're telling the people to pay tax and they're paying tax, they must know what you spend the money on. They must know how you spend the money. They must be able to call you to question, to account for how you spend it. Of course, that also happened here in Ondo State. And the government was able to come out and say, look, against what was reported, that money is not this, it is actually palliative fund. Of course, because it's not inside the budget, it has to go into contingency. Of course, that is part of democracy. There must be questions. There must be explanations per time. Otherwise, we might as well just say we're in the Banana Republic. Let's go to Sporting Arena from your end there.
All right, moving on to the sporting arena like Sunday. I don't know why you're dashing me sports today, but I'll gladly do that. Looking at the Sporting Sun, Osime Oshoala listed for Globe Soccer Awards, Boniface for Emerging Player of the Year. Pesero agrees to coach Zamalek, demands $70,000. NFF draws up three-man shortlist as replacement. We also have Ronaldo adds $1.6 million piece in his watch collection. That's huge. Messi, Haaland, CR7, Benzema in Titanic battle. Onwachume return to Southampton. Juve loses where to new muscle injury. Pistorius could be set for parole on Friday. You know, a lot of us have forgotten his story. Oscar Pistorius in South Africa, that killed his then girlfriend. Well, so the, all right. I think that's all from the Sporting Sun this morning.
Beautiful one there. Let's place a wrap on the review of stories making headlines in the national dailies of today, the 22nd day of November 2023. Of course, we've been able to pick stories from The Punch, the Nigerian Tribune, Leadership Newspaper, Daily Trust, and some others. Let's take a first break on the outlook. When we return, topical issue for the discussion will be taking center stage. Please do stay with us, everyone. We'll be right back.
I had promised to reform the economy for the long-term good by fighting major imbalances that has plagued our economy. Ending the subsidy and the preferential exchange rate system were key to this fight. The people who grow rich from them predictably will fight back through every means by it. I know.
Company of the Year program. I went through the profile of the organization. I see it's one of the programs you have been able to emplace. What is it about? Are beneficiaries keying into it, and how well is it really getting them to have a new lease of life?
All right, thank you so much for that question, sir. All right, so year competition, which we have newly changed the name to State Company of the Year competition, is a ripple effect of our company program. And so the company program is our flagship program where students in their with specific informations and taught to and developed in the area of entrepreneurship, where they learn how to identify a problem within their local communities, and from that problem they provide a solution which can either be a product or a service, and from that product or service they make profit for themselves. So the program runs for 13 weeks. Through the course of the session, where they meet on a weekly basis to ensure that they are on track with all their activities and engagements. Now, during the course of the program, president, is a company, so they set it up as a company in their school premises there. So they elect their production manager, they elect their human resource manager and the PRO that work together as the board of directors of the company, aside every other member of the company that all distributed into several departments, in that order. So together, when they identify their problem, they start making sales, they do 10 weeks program, then we move on to the regional competition, which the school, Geomi International School in Akure, was able to win across the schools that participated in those states.
There